Okay.
What I think what I've been dealing with um, throughout the FC, and I've recently realized the importance of letting this attenuate a lot. It is a very hypercritical mind. Um,
Why am I not surprised?
who can, what was your first clue? But and yeah, we can talk more about that some other time. But
We will. We will. Okay, so as you know, we're going to be talking about changes. Anything you've noticed that's different in any way from before you had a shift in consciousness to now?
well, since I don't know when my shifts occurred because they're quite kind of seeping and gradual, I think we need to define dates.
When did you first notice or believe, let's say, that you were on the continuum?
I don't want to go there.
Okay.
I would like to start. I would prefer to say before FC began until today.
Perfect.
Yeah, I would like to have that to be my before and after.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about David before the FC and David today.
Right now. Yeah.
Today. Right now. Knowing that you've made lots of different kinds of shifts, or things have continued to change or whatever, but trying to capture now, the now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But, feel free to interject whatever you want.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, so the first area is thoughts. Did anything change in terms of your thoughts from before to after? Did they increase or decrease or stay the same?
It's weird because it doesn't feel like it did, but I know objectively that it must be less because I used to. There are several categories of thoughts that aren't around as much, so it must be less. And there's no new category that's emerged to fill the space. So
what are the categories that are that aren't around as much?
Yeah. So one category is emotional perseverating, just going around and around about being upset about certain things. Mm-hmm. So that's like 99% gone. Mm-hmm. And I know how to deal with it if it starts to come back or whatever. So that's a big shift. Keeping things in my mind that I need to do is reduced. I used to keep to-do lists running in my mind, and I think I simultaneously, I don't know if I don't care or I'm unable to now, or it's not relevant or something, but that's not really running now.
Do you have a written to-do list as well?
I had them then, and I use them now as well.
So it was kind of redundant.
I use them less now. Well, I mean, part of the issue is that I need to actually use them more because I need to get going more, because of the lull that Jeffrey talks about has been extremely real for me. But so I have to do and I need to do and that kind of thing. Planning is reduced.
All kinds of planning or certain kinds of planning?
I used to do enormous amounts of trying to figure out like how to close a deal or how to. There was a lot of pre-planning what I might say in certain situations. Pre-rehearsal of conversations was an enormous amount of time spent on that. Actually going over my lines. And I learned this, I think, in childhood. Well, I know I did. Because I had to get my lies ready for my parents, so I would rehearse them so that they sounded real, you know.
Yeah.
So I'd get the story straight, and I would rehearse saying it in my mind.
So a big protection was to rehearse and plan.
Well, yeah, I think it was part of the spy work that I was involved in. That's just my term for my childhood, running my own life, clandestinely from my parents.
Got it. Got it.
Much of which was, in my own head, but some of it was in the outside world as well.
When did it start? How old were you, or how young were you?
I think it probably started around the age of somewhere around 9 or 10, something like that.
Okay.
We moved. There was a big significant move to a different state when I was 7, and I don't think it happened before then. And then I'm sure it was on when I was 10, so I'm guessing it started generating around 8 or 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, more or fewer judgmental thoughts, or just
11,
the same?
10 or 11. Yeah. Judgmental of myself and others is reduced, huge amount. It's very difficult to be as judgmental of yourself when you've seen through the fiction of, your memories and the fiction of the ego and all these fictions that you see through in non-duality. So,
right.
I can't completely separate. There's actually, I posited this beginning as right before the FC, but it's kind of also an elastic back to my kind of dark night and start of non-duality. There's some of that that's going to seep into the before as well, because it's almost impossible to separate out.
Okay.
But the fact of the matter is that I was struggling. I was in the spiritual thing. I mean, I did what I thought was spirituality and metaphysics before that, and it kind of was, but I got real serious about it when the pain got really high, and that was in the beginning of 2013. But but anyway, what I'm saying is that things were happening. I was making progress, but before FC, I was still really struggling.
Right.
And so then, and with FC, a lot of that was reduced, and then there's been 3 periods. There's the FC period, there's the in-between period, and now the EC, and all 3 have done their work.
Right. Yeah. So it's a trajectory in the right
there's
direction.
Kind of these 3 stages, and FC was, which I readily tell people, but was quite a tumultuous thing for me in many ways. I was projecting a huge amount towards Jeffrey, and he was a blankety blank and so and not doing customer service methods 1, 2, and 3 that he should be doing, and all this.
Right.
But so planning is reduced, anticipating fearfully and trying to prepare for things I was afraid of, which I guess is a subset of planning, but a big one that is reduced a lot.
Right.
So I could probably even name other categories, but those are some really big ones that have all been reduced.
Right.
And
So I'm assuming worry is part of that rumination thing, or not?
Being concerned about the future and trying to figure out what to do about it, I guess, is worry. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's.
I didn't consider myself a worrying person, but I guess that's what was going on.
Okay. What about competitive thoughts?
I'm going to get more emails for the list than you. They're not completely gone. No. I don't know if how much they were there when, at this kind of before point, but it's probably reduced somewhat.
Okay. And what about self-referential thoughts?
Well, I think all the ones I mentioned to you, almost all of those were self-referential.
Right. I agree.
So I don't know of a category that I can think of. I mean,
So you mentioned the critic that you lived with for a very long time. Is
yeah.
that critic significantly quieter, or
Well,
at least?
I don't know if I mentioned that. I don't think I used the word critic.
No, I just translated what you said. Oh, you
Yeah.
said critical. You said
Oh,
critical.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, does
Well, I think there was a lot of criticism of others going on in my head.
uh-huh.
That's way down.
Okay.
There isn't much criticism of myself going on now, and I think there probably was before.
Okay.
The bizarre thing is that I've listed maybe 10 categories now that are vastly reduced or almost entirely gone, and yet I don't. So objectively, there's less thoughts because I can't think of any new category that's sprung up.
Right.
But I can't. But I still don't feel like I have less thoughts. I don't feel like it, but I know it now as basically
Right.
as of yesterday.
So your experience of thoughts in your head are that there's still plenty of thoughts.
No,
No.
I don't know how to quantify it. I think that my criteria for thought free will be like some total silence and just like,
Wow, that's that's kind of extreme.
well, I think that's an unconscious criteria,
Okay.
and that I'm maybe becoming conscious of now.
Uh-huh.
Or, yeah, I don't see. The thing is that even if there's not thoughts, there's still like a perfume of a thought.
Right.
There's still
Right.
something many times trying to creep in. You may not let it, but there's still like an attitude towards life. I'm not completely free of an orientation,
Right.
or a
So
felt sense of how I feel I am right now. I
uh-huh.
don't mean consciousness but I mean just kind of like, maybe I feel just, I'm not like saying I'm happy right now, but maybe there's just kind of an underlying feeling of okayness that my belief is that feelings are thoughts. They're just a different type of thoughts. So I think until I've had the experience of none of that, it won't seem like it's weird. It's all or nothing. There's an all or nothing thing going on.
So that's a belief.
I guess it's an unconscious belief. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's pretty conscious.
It's coming up to be conscious as I
Yeah.
explore it.
Right. Right. So that's a good one to remember. So then let's talk about emotions, which in a way we've been talking about,
Right.
but more specifically, are there more emotions, less emotions, the same?
Well, I just want to interject that it appears to me, and I could be, just uneducated, but I think that I think it's almost impossible to have tons and tons of thoughts if emotions aren't involved.
Unless you have Asperger's.
Okay.
And those people either don't have emotions or they wouldn't know one if it hit them.
Okay. All right. So there's always an edge case, but
Right.
I think that if you're emotionally a calm person,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you're doing a type of work, say you're typing really fast, where you have to think a lot and keep your thoughts going to like put stuff out by a deadline. But I'm not talking about that. But I'm just saying if you're emotionally just a very calm person, you're just walking down the street. I think it's very difficult to just have thought storm if there's not a lot of emotions going on.
Right.
So even compute that you would just have a head full of crazed thoughts flying all around and be completely emotionally calm. That just doesn't make any sense to me. So,
I agree. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's why when you ask about thoughts, the first thing that always comes up is, well, I was thinking about the things I was upset about.
Uh-huh.
And of course the upset is a thought. So
right. It's a thought with feelings.
Yeah, I mean, I think the feelings are parts of the thought as well, but that's a definitional problem that doesn't need to be resolved anyway. Unless there's less emotions, yes.
Okay. And are the emotions the same amount of positive and negative, or has that changed?
Oh, well, certainly there's way less negative emotions because just for example, doing many, many hours of Levinson, I transformed a lot of the emotions, and now.
Right, right.
And now I also realize that if something comes up about something, that whole thing is like not only did its own individual work, but it has this ongoing powerful residual effect of knowing whatever that has come up is just like, oh, that's just how you're holding something. It's not like they really did it to me or something, like it kind of has cracked the case of it being real as well as.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's shown the bullshit nature of.
Exactly. Of it. So some of the questions I'm going to ask are almost repetitive.
That's fine.
But I just want to make sure we kind of get in every possible way.
Yeah.
So do the emotions that you do have carry more charge or less charge? More arousal or less arousal?
Well, I think one of the future things we need to do on this is type in what charge and arousal means, because most people are not psychologists on the
Good
course.
Point.
And I think I have an idea of it on a very amateur level, but I don't think I'm having many emotions, and I think that certainly the ones I do have are less charged, and I get less. I get less upset. I mean, I can only really think of one significant upset that has occurred since EC began.
Wow. That's fantastic.
It had to do something with the EC, in fact, but I keep thinking that part of my, there's a meta program in here that doesn't want to admit that this whole thing is working, and the interview process is ferreting that out, actually, and calling bullshit on it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. How about, go ahead.
This meaning Jeffrey's thing, meaning that you can get awakened, meaning, that this is real, that there could be a program administered by email, essentially, that results in awakening, all these things that I really had a big ledge about, in the FC.
Right.
I kind of got off the ledge, but there's that residual, where I was holding out this position of, well, I don't know what location I'm in, or even if I'm in one. I had to be the exception, I had to be the one person that kept saying that.
Right. Right.
So yeah, they don't last as long. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, because before they could last for years, right? So.
Oh, okay. So something about that, you had to be the one case that was different. What is the meaning of that?
Has that changed for you?
Well, obviously it hasn't, because I'm still practicing it. It happened.
All of a sudden the sound came through my computer, which is wonderful, which is what I wanted.
Okay. As soon as I admit the truth, your computer will work.
Exactly.
This is how powerful this stuff is.
You've changed everything.
Oh my God. Your video and your audio I have fixed.
That's right.
What's next? Kinesthetic.
We'll figure something out. So we were saying that, what were we saying?
We haven't been having an interview. No. We were saying that there was a side thing. There was a tangent going on about me not wanting to admit, but we were talking about do upsets have less charge or more, or less arousal or more, or the same. And I'm saying that that there's less.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it also doesn't make sense for me that you would have vastly reduced numbers of upsets, but then the ones that do happen are massively extreme and even more than before. I mean, that makes no sense. I mean, that would be almost psychotic.
Right.
I'm sure there's, again, an edge case where that may happen,
Right.
you know, but I would think in the main that just would not be the way that it would run. Otherwise, it would knock the shit out of you, you know? I mean,
Right.
anyway.
How about changes in amount of or level of irritability?
Okay, now back to the sound. When the sound's coming through your computer, but your voice is not as good.
All right, now where is the sound coming through my?
No, you have to designate it with the preferences. Are you on Mac?
Yeah.
Yeah, go to Zoom preferences and
So
choose
I have
audio.
microphone, built-in microphone, external microphone,
Yeah, external.
speaker, built-in output, headphones.
Yeah,
Or-
microphone.
That's what I have. Let's see what audio options are. No. So the last time this happened, I had to reboot my computer.
All right. Never mind. Forget the headphones. I'm sorry.
Well, but I mean,
Let's
like,
just speak a little louder is all.
okay, no, I can. How's this? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we were talking about level of changes in irritability.
Much less irritable. Irritability was high for me before.
Okay.
Irritability and reactivity. I kind of link those together
Yeah.
because I react to the things I'm irritated about. So,
Right.
you know, I think, yeah. So yeah, that's geez, I don't know,
So that's changing.
90% reduced or more.
Wow. Wow, David. Huh. Okay.
It started reducing before FC, but it's accelerated quite a bit.
Right. What about anxiety?
I can't separate that from worry. So
So that's still also changed.
yeah,
Okay. Less anxiety.
say the same. I'm not going to be able to define that differently than worry. So the worry talk covered that.
Can you put it in your body? Do you feel anxiety in your body? In your stomach?
I mean, I'm sure I do. I feel pretty much everything.
But it's just not coming up for you at the moment.
Oh, you mean, can I generate it now?
No. I don't want you to generate it now. I'm just wondering if, just to kind of cue in on how you experience anxiety, to know how it's changed, if it's changed.
I never thought I had anxiety, so I don't relate to the question.
Okay. You feel like you have more worry than anxiety.
I didn't feel I had worry either. I didn't I avoided the labels.
Okay.
So I'm just going to have to kind of putatively use them, I guess, as to what other people would mean by them. I mean, I don't really. What is the difference between anxiety and worry?
Mm-hmm. I think worry has thinking first with emotion underneath it, and anxiety has emotion and sometimes about any thought.
Anxiety, which emotions though?
Anxiety is basically its own emotion. It can include fear. It can include tenseness.
I guess I kind of put that under the category of angst, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. Angst is good. Has that changed for you?
Yeah, it's greatly reduced.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's way less of it.
Okay. How about anger?
Much less.
Okay. Envy or jealousy?
There wasn't really much of that before.
Okay. How about compassion and empathy?
Oh, there is a category of thought that has continued. There's certain types of fantasy that occur. That's still there.
Okay.
Calling back to where we were before. And now, did you just recently say compassion?
Yeah, compassion and empathy.
I would say compassion is quite a bit more.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
I mean, it's difficult for me to tease these out because I basically just put all the negative emotions in one category.
Okay.
Of kind of like mental stress. So to me, anger, irritability, reactivity, anxiety, worry, angst, they're all basically essentially, different sides of the same prism, really. I mean, they're not really that much different for me. Or fear. I mean, maybe fear is, but I don't see these as really that distinct. It's just a bunch of mental garbage.
Right. Can we go back then to the category of thought that has remained, and that you said was fantasy?
Yes.
And that's exactly the same, or any changes at all?
It's probably reduced somewhat, but not reduced nearly as much as all these other categories.
And is it, how does it work for you? Is it?
Well, it's I think it's essentially, most of the fantasy is about, I mean, how does it work? Do you mean content or?
No, you don't, I mean, you can share content, but you don't need to. I'm just curious about whether or not it's self-soothing or it's stimulating or.
No, I think it's kind of like wish fulfillment type of stuff.
Right.
Right.
So
it's almost kind of, in a way, it's like if my problem wouldn't be here if X was true, and then I fantasize about X being true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that actually leads. We'll come back to that in. Where are we? Sense of self.
Okay.
How about self-consciousness? Is that dumped into that whole?
Self-consciousness means what exactly? Like shyness or inhibition?
Yeah, or wondering how are you coming across? What are people thinking of you? It tends to be more interpersonal. So I also have it.
Yeah, I would probably say that that's reduced, but still there quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I see through it more, but I haven't gotten rid of it.
Right.
I know that it's bullcrap. I kind of knew it before, but I know it much more now. But I still haven't dropped it completely.
So, were you a person, a man who expressed feelings? And if so, which I think is more or less, has that changed at all?
Well, when the Dark Knight thing happened, I was plunged into feelings in a massive way, and so then, and it was an opening, and all the garbage started coming out. I don't know if it was all of it, but a lot of it, and so using that as a before and after. I mean, I'm much. You mean by expressing them? You mean expressing them verbally?
Yeah.
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 It ebbs and flows, but it's more now than before, that's for sure.
Uh-huh.
Because before I could go kind of in an empathy-free zone almost, and I kind of liked it.
Oh.
It was like, the compartmentalizing that men do.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Okay. So, is there anything else in the category of emotion that I have not asked about that comes to mind?
Well, you haven't asked about very many positive ones.
Okay. Very good point. So you had said way less negative,
Right.
and you hadn't said a lot about more positive, but it sounds like you should be talking right now about, or I'd love you to be talking about the positive thoughts of feelings that come to mind.
Do you want to give me some for instances?
Yeah. Optimism.
Reduced.
Less, or you're less optimistic?
Yes, much more or less.
Huh. Okay.
Also, probably less pessimistic, but see, the thing is, before this all happened, I felt I had my mojo.
Oh.
Now that feels like shattered.
Oh.
And I think my mojo is based on my illusion of myself and the fact that I wanted to make something of my life and had all these. That was also taking a lot of blows before I even had the Dark Knight thing. But one of the things that happened, I'm not, I'll just run this little story out. But I used to do the work I do. Used to be like one appointment, and then I may not see that person again for years or ever. Just go and consult with them, and then that'd be like 2 or 3 hours, and then that was it, or maybe a follow-up phone call. But then I started working with people long-term, where I would work with them for a month, or maybe 3 months, or 6 months, or like 3 years even. Like some people have very, very long projects, and I would work with them for an extended period of time. And then what I saw was that if they implemented what I said and they got the new result that they wanted, like the new job or the new wife or the new this or less of that, they weren't really happy.
Oh.
They were still kvetching,
Right.
It didn't resolve the essential problem of themselves.
Right.
It was just a new set of good and bad.
Right.
Which really adds up to the same. I mean, in a way, it was like a zero-sum game,
Uh-huh.
Like people would want a new career or they would want the promotion. So I would give them the techniques and they got the promotion.
Uh-huh.
But then they have to work harder and they're not at home as much.
Right.
It's required now.
Right.
So something has been taken away.
Right.
I could never find anything that was just unalloyed good to give them. So it's just only going to add good, period. That's it.
Right.
Maybe love, that would be the only one. If they open their heart more, maybe. But I mean, we're even finding out through Jeffrey the big list of downsides there is to awakening. I mean, it's mind-boggling. There's nothing, even awakening, even non-duality happens in the context of duality in a certain way. And so that kind of really wounded my whole kind of like project that I believe the workshops where you can set your intention and then get what you wanted and have a great life. And then that all was getting chopped down. But then after the whole non-duality, I mean, the whole Dark Knight thing, and even I guess maybe somewhat with, I don't know, with the FC and so on, it just, I didn't have this this belief in myself anymore. Like I can kick ass and make it happen, and so that felt enormously weakened because so many of the pillars of things that I used to quote make it happen had been shattered so badly that I couldn't gin that up anymore. So optimism was part of that.
Uh-huh.
So how about happiness?
It's probably there more, but there's a lot of neutrality.
Uh-huh.
I would say that's the dominant thing. It's just neutrality.
Uh-huh.
Are you alone? There's some weird sounds going on.
I am alone.
Okay, all right.
There's construction going on the floor below me.
Okay.
So
Could be that. Could be that.
that's why I wish my headphones were working. What about the sense of okayness?
Vastly better.
Okay. So it's an interesting picture that I'm seeing emerge that I just want to take a little sidestep
Mm-hmm.
and check with you.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you're saying you have a huge decrease in thoughts, especially of the negative variety, which
Right.
are emotionally negative,
Mhm.
but not necessarily an increase in positive emotions or thoughts. Optimisms, for instance, being an example.
Well, there's a lot less thoughts, period. So there's not a whole, it's not like, you know, all these positive thoughts rushed in to fill the void.
And that's where your mojo thing is missing.
Well, I mean, it was more of kind of like this idea of you know, that I could run the world, so to speak. At least my world.
Right.
The I was very important, and the I was going to try to do something. And
Is there no I now?
provisionally there is. I mean, there's an I, but I can't. It just seems. I don't know. It seems like what I was doing before would be kind of fake to do now.
To bolster that I up.
To sell somebody on something, to sell myself on something. I did so much of that. I just, for decades, I you know, do you know what neuro-linguistic programming is? Yeah, I did a lot of that. I was a teacher of that. I really, you know, and all this building up and kind of like, you know, gung-ho-ness, it's just all so flat and empty now. And to try to resurrect that would just be completely fake. So, you know, yeah, there's not really, there's not really much optimism.
Okay. And what about that sense of okayness?
Yeah, I think that's much higher than it was before. Well, see, before things were not, before the whole program was define a problem, get angry and upset about it. Now get happy that you're going to smash it. Now go smash it, have a victory. Yay, we're awesome. And then do it again. You know, that was the cycle. That's all just bullshit now. So I don't really have a new program.
Huh. Okay.
Do you understand the cycle?
I do, yeah.
It's like, you know, yeah. So then, you know, it's like something to get upset about, and then rally the troops, slay the dragon, come back and have the feast, go to sleep, and then wake up and do it again.
Right.
Yeah, that's the plan. But now that isn't the plan, and there's no mojo. That whole thing was like, you know, a continuous kind of self-feeding thing.
So how you determined your self-worth or your self-esteem or whatever was you would go through this whole thing and then you would win, you'd slay the dragon and you were great, and then it would happen all over again.
Yeah. Well, then hopefully a new problem would occur, so you could get, you know, angry and run out and kill the dragon again.
Right. So now the question is, what makes the self-esteem or sense of self?
Well, those two are very different for me. So which one?
Pick one.
Self-esteem, I don't feel like I have that. I don't feel like I don't have it, but I just don't feel like self-esteem. I mean, which self do we refer to now? So
I'm talking about the David self.
oh, the David self.
Because I'm assuming.
I would say that there's kind of like a self-okayness, but not as much as esteem as far as, oh, I really love myself. I mean, that's just like, I don't know. I guess it's okay.
And self-confidence?
Not really.
And is that worse or
It's
better?
worse. It's worse.
Okay. And sense of self, which
See, the whole castle took this massive beating, and so there hasn't been really a resurrection of a new persona, to use the Greek meaning of the term.
so what about that sense of okayness? Has
What
that
about-
been to fill some of those gaps?
The okayness is kind of almost more like a fact than a feeling. I know that everything is okay because of the teaching.
Uh-huh. So you don't really grok it. You don't really feel it.
I don't ungrok it, but I don't. It's not absent, but it doesn't feel very present. It's just kind of, I know that it's there.
Okay. Okay. How about calm? Sense of calm. Or
Calm is pretty well. I think that obviously calm is more because I'm not going through these big, this cycle that I mentioned to you is not a calm cycle.
Right.
And so that cycle isn't going on. So there's calm, but also, possibly some too quietness, deadness, I could not leave the house for a few days even. That's not optimal,
Does that
probably.
feel like a depression or kind of depression?
Well, I think you could have said before FC that there was probably depressive characteristics. I don't want to label it as depression. I guess my thing is either reject the label or turn it into one of my own, but I have a hard time accepting other people's labels of the way I've been.
Substitute your own labels for
But one second.
talk about quiet and even deadness.
Yeah, deadness.
What, you're looking something up?
I'm trying to get the monitor to look better. Okay. Well, I think I'm crawling out of it now. Okay, but what was going on before was just there's a word anomy. You know that word? It's related to the word ennui.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of like who cares, so what kind of thing. I think there's been a lot of that going on.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure how depressive it was, but it's like the non-duality path has been resulting in the deflation and disillusioning of so many previously held beliefs and concepts that it can really get old after a while.
Right.
Like what you thought true, A is gone, B is gone, C is gone, it just keeps going,
Right.
And then when you realize that your memories probably aren't true and most of what you're thinking is utter bullshit, you just kind of don't believe in anything anymore. And it's just kind of like, well, whatever.
Right.
But like I said, that's, I think, in the last few weeks has been lifting.
Okay. And any change from yesterday's interview to today along those lines?
I think in general, there's much less resistance in today's interview.
Okay.
I feel smoother about the answers, less trying to resist or chop everything up. And
Okay.
so I'm more comfortable with the process and more, I think, self-revealing about it. Yeah.
Anything else along these lines that you know that I don't know about?
You mean regarding the emotion?
Yeah. Because you mentioned that I hadn't asked about positive emotions. Are there other positive emotions that you could label or define that I've not asked about that you're aware of?
Yeah, what happened before was that I think I don't know if I had positive emotions before. I might have had some pleasure, but that's not really the same as a positive emotion, I guess. But I think I had a lot of negative emotion, and those have gotten greatly attenuated, and then there wasn't really much positive emotion to replace it. I don't know. It's a weird thing to admit, but so I mean, look, if you there's more peace.
Right.
There's this, and that's really, completely invaluable. So
Right.
yeah, that's irreplaceable.
We're in a transition, it sounds like to me, where one thing has significantly changed, but another thing hasn't really solidified yet or crept into.
Well, I didn't know that there was a need for it to. I mean,
Right. How would you?
yeah, I mean, up until the last couple of weeks, I don't think that there was many positive emotions. There was just kind of like a running along evenness.
Uh-huh.
It was more like the absence of negative is good, more so than, I mean, sometimes in the classes that I go to, there'd be moments of, just like deep sense of appreciation and deep sense of unity and stuff like that.
Right.
But they're infrequent. So and I never really chalk them up once they happen. They don't last that long.
Right.
But I would say, like, at the beginning we talked about, and I said some things about appreciating, and before we really started, and so that I think is happening a lot more.
Uh-huh.
It is happening. I don't know. I mean, it's odd. It's odd because I yesterday's interview and today have I guess revealed that my internal scorecard is utterly inaccurate.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you do the eraser method with the 1-inch block mapping, you realize that if you touch yourself with a stick where you thought it was is not where it is, and then you're like, shit, I don't even know my body map either. Now I'm finding out that my mind map is also utter bullshit, or not utter, but it's way off in many ways.
Uh-huh.
I guess that's the blind spot. So.
And yet you have an increased sense of okayness and peacefulness.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a blind spot. Maybe everything's not okay.
I would submit to you that things are more okay.
Yeah, they are. That was a joke. They're definitely more okay. Maybe it's just the Paxil. I mean, no, I'm not on anything. No.
Okay.
No, I will not do that. But
people who are awake do medication.
yeah, I do. I mean, I and I don't judge that.
Okay.
I mean, it's whatever, because brain chemistry is its own thing.
Exactly.
And so, I mean,
Right.
look, I mean, I use TDCS, and I use light and sound machines, and I use neurofeedback and all this other stuff that affects you as well. And I use herbs and tryptophan, and
Uh-huh.
so
Okay.
melatonin.
So let's talk about sensory perception. Have you noticed any changes in your sense perceptions? Auditory, visual, smell, touch, taste?
I don't really think so. I think maybe the one difference is that I worked a lot on the reactivity that I had to them, but that's not a difference in the actual perception.
So,
Or like I would be, for instance, the sudden loud sounds. Like maybe everybody's sensitive to them, but I would be the most sensitive person in the room.
you would
Or like, sorry?
startle?
Leading to anger, leading to want to eliminate the sound. Or let's say that there's 30 people in a workshop and there's a loud sound outside the workshop window. I would be the only one in the room to actually plug my ears,
Wow. Okay.
or something,
Right. Right.
So
How about the perception of physical pain or discomfort? Has that changed at all?
it's impossible to say because I don't have, no pain is identical to any previous pain. So there's no way to know, but I think my reaction to it is different.
Okay.
But that's more of a mental and emotional thing. Reacting to it.
It's still your experience of.
Yeah, so I think I'm much more able to not get as worried about it, or not, add, stress to it by thinking about it or whatever.
Right.
Um,
More in the present.
but as I look into it, I think it probably is something that I can bear a lot easier because I think the clamping down and the resistance to it happens as soon as possible when you know what I'm saying? So when the pain happens, you start hating it or wanting it to be away almost even before you're conscious of it. And it's a learned response that's very deep. And so I think that has unwound somewhat.
Right.
So I would guess that that's a difference in the pain, because nowadays the pain can just kind of happen and fly through rather than, getting caught up.
Right.
That's kind of like the emotions too, I guess.
Right. So they happen, but they're attenuated, they vanish, they disappear, they whatever.
Well, that's for a pain that is like that. There's ongoing pain as well, and those kinds of pains I think is also easier.
Okay. Have you ever experienced synesthesia? Smelling, having seen colors when you're counting, or
Aside from drugs, I don't think so. I'm not saying it was a huge amount on drugs either, but I don't think it was. But yeah, I don't think I've ever had that.
okay. How's your memory? Any changes in that?
Well, there have been some enormous issues with it, because my hypothesis is that remembering things was connected to caring about them, so to speak.
Oh, yeah.
And that's connected to the story.
Right.
So if the story has been wounded or deleted, then that the central character is not as central anymore. So then you don't care about it, or you've seen through it, or it seems like bullshit. Then the emotional need to remember it isn't there. So then your brain doesn't just do it.
Right.
There was issues with remembering words. Also issues with remembering appointments, and then in particular remembering where I'd placed objects.
Yeah.
Remembering what I'd been thinking about a few minutes ago, but I could remember what I was thinking about yesterday.
Right.
So there was quite a bit of this few minutes ago problem.
Right.
And I think what I've done is I've noticed the problem and decided to start changing it, and so then it's been getting better.
Huh.
Yeah.
So you kind of just put that out there, the intention?
Well, I put it out there, but I also started using mnemonic devices too. Like, I would put something down and then say to myself, I've put this on the bathroom counter, and now I know where it is. And I would cue myself to remember it.
Right.
So I started, retraining myself to do that. And I think that has helped.
And long-term memory, has that changed at all?
I think that's a tougher one to tease out, but I don't really know how to relate to that question exactly.
Well, we had talked earlier about you're learning the spy business in childhood and
Hmm.
yourself from a very difficult childhood. Do memories of those stories, your history, do they come up? Has anything changed in terms of your memory, or do those stories just not come up much?
There's less pain involved with them because I've done a lot of forgiving about it,
Right,
or loving, or whatever you want to call it.
right,
Hey, who knew if you just put love into it, it would be okay? Newsflash,
right,
pretty
right,
simple.
right.
Um, so, yeah, I mean, the painful memories are coming up less because there's less there to come up.
Right,
And when they do, I don't hate them. Now I see it's perfect.
right.
And I know that if there's part of me that still hurts, that's just an inner child part that I need to love and all of this. But as far as actually being able to remember stuff from the far past as compared to before, I can't tell if that's changed.
Okay,
I don't really know.
okay. That's
You
fine.
know? Yeah.
Has there been a shift in your self-identification? How you identify yourself?
Isn't that all we've been talking about?
Yeah.
So I would refer you from minute one of the interview until now as the answer.
Yes. Okay. That's great. So when there is a disturbance, some kind of thing happens, um, what happens to your sense of okayness or reactivity or?
Yeah, that's a dumb question because the definition of a disturbance means you're not okay. So I think that teasing that out is a little difficult when there's a word conflict like that. But
So here's an example of one I noticed for me. Last year, a year ago, my oldest stepdaughter called me up and said, "You've got to get me into a rehab. I have a serious drug addiction." Out of the blue.
mm,
That was a disturbance,
mhm.
yet I dealt with it really calmly, and my sense of okayness was just absolutely placid. I mean, my equanimity. So before, I think I would have gotten kind of more hyped up. I mean, I do have always tended to respond to crises pretty well. But even so, my kid, my stepdaughter, my kid, it would have riled up a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
It could be a disturbance like, somebody cutting in front of you in traffic, or the Comcast guy never showing up, or you know what I mean. Any kind of.
Oh, yeah. What people normally would get riled about, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's, again, refer back to everything I said, but that's a bit massively reduced.
Right.
As far as that, yeah. So before, like, okayness would be like completely gone, maybe, or 90% gone, and now we're on the warpath.
Right.
Now it's maybe more like 1 to 10% gone or something. Or see, the weird thing is that and I think a lot of
Can you stop this for a sec?
yeah.
Pause.
Yep.
Good. Okay.
So what I'm realizing now is that okay. So this could be big actually. Okay. So one of the things that we've already talked about in our meetings is that non-dual teachers, and Jeffrey has teased this out too, say, I don't have thoughts, but yet we know they mean only a category of thoughts. If they had no thoughts, they would be comatose or dead.
Right.
Right. So they're obviously there is a thought going on, but it doesn't feel like a thought going on because there's not self-referential thoughts going on. Unless maybe John posited a category, maybe people in location 12 literally is like really zero, but they're just, I don't know how they're operating, but they're operating. Okay. But anyway, there's still some brain activity, there's something going on. I don't know if brain activity is synonymous with thought, but anyway, there's obviously a difference probably between what some of them are well, like Gary Weber.
Right.
Gary Weber is very clear, but he said the moment that he awakened,
Right.
everything went silent. But he was concerned about how he'd appear at work. Well, that concern is a thought.
Right. Exactly.
Otherwise, he couldn't remember to tell us. So definitely it was a thought. Fact. Now, but the thoughts are so much reduced, it feels like there's no thoughts.
Right.
And spiritual masters, gurus, reporters have been saying for eons that there's only peace and bliss and joy here. But then you inquire deeper. Do you ever get worried? Yeah, but it doesn't last. So the phenomenon is emotionally is what I'm just getting chills, and I think I'm identifying something here. Is that the way that our mind works? Is that when we get to the point where the emotions just go through, then we feel like we're free of them.
Yeah.
We're still having them.
Yes.
And many times will report that we don't have them.
Right.
They are actually still occurring. They're just not being gripped.
Exactly.
That's the whole issue. That's the karma. That's the pain. That's the suffering. That's the laying down the track. That's what records then in the mind. That's what makes the groove. That's what adds to the habit.
Exactly.
That's what the pain is. That's where, you grab onto it and then you make it important.
Right.
Then you have to deal with it from then in the future.
Right. The gripping. I love the way you put that. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you think so this word free of then is a gloss it can mean that they're not there, or it can mean they fly through and you're free of the gripping.
Right.
It kind of has a double meaning, and that smear of meaning can lead to a misconception that they're just not there at all, or like in the negative ones, I mean,
Yeah.
and that there's only peace and joy. But then if there's a funeral, they do cry and grieve, but then it's over.
Right.
So technically, it's true that they had a negative emotion, so to speak,
Right.
because they were acting.
Right.
So it's an interesting parallel between the thought and the emotional case.
Right.
Is that in the thought case, a large category disappeared and it felt like they all disappeared.
Right.
Even though the report, I was wondering or whatever, wondering is a form of thought. With the emotional, when they still occur, but you don't grip them, your mind glosses that into they're not really occurring in many ways.
Right.
But they are.
Uh-huh.
So it's interesting how the reporting mechanism isn't accurate. That's, I guess, the value of the interviews.
Yeah. I like the way Gary Weber describes what thoughts there are.
Yeah, the 3 thoughts video.
Right. That's to me, that's very reassuring because I still have plenty of thoughts.
He's a gift.
He is. I like him a lot.
I mean, yeah, he's a very cool person.
So, are you more extroverted, more introverted? Any changes along those lines?
Probably a lot less extroverted, more introverted, probably,
Okay.
or less. Yeah, I mean, less caring about. And I think I'm again climbing out of that now as well. Wanting and being willing to connect more with people.
Uh-huh.
Because I went through a big phase of everything is bullshit, and then I didn't really care.
Right. Right.
So.
Right. So, how's your sense in terms of being complete or incomplete, needing people, things, whatever, to fill you up, to complete you? Any change in that?
Well, there's the one issue of needing money every month.
Right.
Okay, we can maybe put that one aside
Right.
for the moment, because it's kind of an ongoing
Right.
problem we haven't cracked as a society yet. This whole needing to work for a living thing, but um, it's weird because I have whatever I need, so I don't. If a lot of that was subtracted, I might have a very different report.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
I do. I do. So
But wanting a nicer car because it would simply look nicer or be nicer is not really there,
okay.
you know.
Right.
But I think there's a combination of not wanting to put in the effort to earn the car, but also knowing and seeing that that isn't going to help anything.
Right. It's not going to fill you up emotionally.
Is this vaping going on?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Is that okay with you?
Totally. I just saw a light there. I was like, what the fuck is that?
I do this off and on through all of our meetings and all of our everything.
I have never noticed it.
Nobody notices it.
Well, I just did, so. It looks like a pen. And the light is what gave it away. I just saw well, you have 720p on now. So
That's it. Now my
saw the
vape
vapor.
is exposed to the whole world.
All good.
Okay. Do you like or accept yourself more?
Oh, gosh. This is ludicrous.
I know I'm not sure about a lot of these questions, but
You mean the David now, you're saying? The unit?
yeah, well, the David is the unit. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you're completely non-dual and there's no sense of separate self, which, I mean, I still have a sense of a separate self. I kind of imagine you do too.
Sure, of course. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean,
That David unit.
and what's the question again?
Do you like yourself or accept yourself more or less?
Gosh, that just seems so irrelevant. That's a kind of like, yeah, that's the answer.
Okay, it's irrelevant.
Mostly, I mean, when you're working on accepting the universe, then, you know, it just seems like
Trivial.
I must have, but it doesn't seem like much is going on with that.
Right.
Objectively, there must be that. I would have to say there is. Well, okay, maybe it's like the non-acceptance has gone away. It hasn't been replaced by a lot of acceptance, though.
Okay. Okay. So good to note.
I mean, yeah.
Any changes in your intimate relationship, for instance? I want to talk about relationships now, starting with that one.
Can you give me a for instance of a change?
Sure. Do you feel closer? Do you feel more distant? Do you feel like you understand her better than you used to or less than you used to? Do you have more empathy or compassion or less? Are you less interested in sex, more, or the same?
Okay, so there's been an uptick in several areas. I've referred to it in the interview that has been probably about 2 weeks long, and a lot of things are improving. So my relationship is just rock solid, so I don't really know how, but I think I've been defining it in terms of absence of problems, and I've recently decided to start adding to the plus side.
Great.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's a recent change.
That's great.
Um,
How about other relationships, friendship patterns, for instance?
most of the people I associate with now are either involved with non-duality or EC. And so um,
So some of your acquaintances or friends.
well, I mean, so therefore I can say that I have a lot of relationships with people that I didn't before. They just happen to be people that are involved with this. But the objective fact is I have all these relationships. Like I have a relationship with you that I didn't have before EC. So that's a change.
Did you have friendships from before, from whenever, that where they're not interested in this path and you're less interested in hanging out with them, that kind of thing?
Most of the friends I have already been on some spiritual path, and they just respect this one as well.
Okay.
And those relationships are maybe the same or slightly better.
Right.
I mean, it's not like I've been hanging around a lot of people that aren't spiritually interested.
Right.
Anyway, so
How about family?
that's definitely been improved in a massive way.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I think it's been improved inside me because of all the forgiveness and love and everything. And I think that has led to smoothness in general. It hasn't led to a massive new amount of togetherness. None of us live in the same city, almost. Not entirely, but so, I mean, the nearest relative to me is like 10-hour drive. So,
Right.
it must have improved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have more or less of a need to be alone or with people?
I think I was kind of like too much alone before, and that might have actually increased now.
More.
In a way. Yeah.
And what about feelings of loneliness?
I think that's greatly reduced because of all the meetings that we're having.
Okay.
So yeah, less.
Okay.
I mean, it's hard to know, if all this stuff stopped, where my baseline would really be.
Right.
Because I keep doing it.
Right. Right.
So, but I mean, the Buddha said the Sangha is part of the path, so there's no reason to stop it and find out.
Exactly.
In fact, he said it's the most important part. So, I mean, I find, a lot of the stuff I was calling bullshit on in FC, I find out now it's not bullshit, and that's been very, very medicinal, so to speak, for me. Or it still is kind of bullshit, but I've been able to tease out the areas where it isn't, and so a lot of the skepticism and doubt that I had about this whole thing being how valid it all is has been so much reduced because of people being on Zoom and Google Hangouts just telling me to my face in a super credible way, this is my reality, and it's like I can't deny that. I can feel the truth of it. So,
Right.
so that has done more than anything else to legitimatize all of this because, of certain aspects of how it was presented.
Right.
And continued to be presented during the course. My bullshit meter kept going off. And so, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So has your sense of connection with others changed?
I think I'm much more able now to just kind of leave people to be as they are rather than then, want to go in and connect with them or want to rebuff them or whatever.
Right.
I mean, most of the people I meet, new people, honestly, are like in a retail environment, a restaurant or a store. I mean, we don't really have like, Harvard Square where I live, where, there's a commons. That's actually a huge problem in our cities, that we don't have commons. It's a huge problem, actually. But that's a different discussion. In European cities, they have them. But
Right.
But meeting them in the, say, a retail environment, whether it's a movie, a restaurant, or a store, or something, or just on the street in between, I think I'm much more able to just be okay with them the way they are. But occasionally I'll be in deep gratitude and compassion and wanting to connect with them.
Got it.
But it's not, there's quite a bit less of going in with the bristly, porcupine, front going on or whatever,
Right.
which was what's going on, before. So.
Do you find yourself taking things more personally or less personally, or about the same?
You take a guess.
No. All right. Next topic. Has your coordination changed?
Well, I'm taking melatonin, and that tends to make you groggy and actually challenge your balance a little bit. But I think that's mostly about getting up at night or right in the morning. It's not during the day.
So how about your sleep, as long as you're bringing that up?
Well, that's too big. Let's go back to coordination.
Okay.
Other than my supposed understanding of the melatonin part, coordination.
Do you bump into things?
Maybe less coordinated. Well, there's kind of an area where it's less and an area where it's more. I think I'm more self-aware of my environment. I'm not as lost in my head with the problems. I might be more lost in my head in the presence and the nowness, or it doesn't really feel like presence and nowness. I'm just using those words, but I used to bump into things because I was kind of more absent-minded.
Right.
So that I think is absent-minded, meaning something else is occupying me, not just absent.
Right.
Problems, basically.
Exactly.
Or just a mental fog or whatever. That's greatly reduced, so I'm not bumping into things as much anymore.
Right.
But I think there still is some of it going on. So it's changed. It's changed more or less.
Right.
I guess with a net less.
Okay.
Net result of less.
Your reflexes, have those changed at all?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that.
Do you take better care of your body now? Self-care stuff, or less self-care stuff, or the same?
I would say less. I have to work harder at it. Well, no, it's mixed.
Uh-huh.
There's areas where I am doing better, and there's areas where I don't care as much. It's changed more so than.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to delineate all the differences right now.
Okay.
A little bit too self-revealing.
Oh. Do you have a sense of not working as hard, or is it about the same?
I'm definitely not working as hard, and I think that's to the detriment. But I mean, because there's not as much going on. But there's also this bizarre being taken care of syndrome Jeffrey talks about too. So.
Well, there are a whole lot of questions here that are to me are irrelevant.
Yeah. If I've already answered them, then don't.
Yeah.
Just jump over them.
Has your definition of love changed?
Well, being as before, I never thought it was very well defined. So that was always murky, and whole books have been written about it, and you still don't necessarily have the answer. But I guess I would have to say yes, but I don't know how.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has your sense of gratitude or appreciation changed?
I think I have more of it, if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mean, I think there's kind of there's more upwellings of kind of gratitude for everything the way it is, or for a certain person, or stuff like that.
Right. Right.
Corny feelings, I call them.
Okay. So I'm at the end of the questions, but I'm wondering if there are things that have been evoked or things that you remember from the questionnaire that I haven't asked, or because I haven't asked a lot of them that either seem to me irrelevant or we've already covered it, 6 ways to Sunday, or I mean, I'm not happy with the way this interview is. Not this, but the interview format. I need to work on it, I feel like.
Yeah, the font is the font on this one is not feasible.
Right.
Just, I mean,
I think we've pretty much gotten
what does NSY mean?
note to self.
Okay, I don't know why there's a Y then. Did you write the NSYs there?
That's Norb.
Thank you, Norb. I don't think there's anything else really that needs to. I mean, I think it's been drilled pretty well.
Yeah. So how's this been for you?
It's a little frustrating because I guess of the format, and terms not being too well defined,
Right.
and then a lot of what just seems like enormous repetition.
Right.
But I think that's because the way my mind categorizes stuff. But it's been very, very valuable, I think, today, because of another large layer of revelation of how I am tracking or scoring or seeing how things are is not really how they are.
Right.
Even within myself. Of course, obviously that has always been the case, but what is becoming apparent is that you or I or we are not even aware of how many emotions that we have, but we think we are.
Right. Right.
And that's very, it's like Elliot, he's not aware he's in the prison or something. I mean, or not letting us in on it either. But it's like, if the ego is the press secretary, it's a poorly informed press secretary, and there's something else which is only revealing to the press secretary what it wants it to know or something.
Right.
There's some other filter going on, that is like an information valve, so to speak.
Right.
That only succumbs to this kind of professional probing, because otherwise you could just walk around in clouds of ignorance, and they might be ignorance is bliss clouds, but they're still there.
I think this process is going to evolve, and stuff will percolate inside people, and awarenesses will change. And
Yeah, I mean, I think it's only maybe a 10th or a 20th or a 50th as skillful as it actually could be.
yeah,
I mean, when this thing gets fine-tuned, I think it could just be completely awesome.
I think so. Yeah.
You know, and I think that is going to be known more so, not by people just dumping more questions on it and making it longer, but by going through, listening to the videos, getting actual feedback on the questions, and having them formatted in a professional way.
Right.
You know, so there's actually coherence between their syntax.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't have to keep switching to a new syntax.
Right.
You know, because that's a mental labor on the part of the ideal format would be the one where you could stay inside your absorption and keep reporting rather than to come out mentally F around with the question and then go back in.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
and so that requires skill, and that requires, you know, attention to the questionnaire.
Well, any feedback that you want to write up, feel free
Okay.
in terms of the questionnaire. You raised a lot of good points. I wrote them all down, pretty much. But that's great.
Yeah, well, I mean, we need to switch. I'll give you some right now. Like, going from "did anything change with your thoughts?" That's a certain type of syntax, and then just jumping to more or fewer judgmental thoughts. That's a different syntax that causes a mental glitch. There, it's like, okay,
Right.
well, wait a second. You were asking the questions one way, and now you're asking phrases. So, I mean,
Right.
you know.
Right. Got it.
So that's one thing that I think could help a lot.
Okay.
I think there should be something here at the beginning, so that the before and after is what before and after is formally agreed on, and that's part of it.
Okay.
What we mean by before and after,
Right.
you know, and that's I think missing actually from Jeffrey's book,
Yeah.
because, you know, he goes right into location one and says people have more of this. Well, compared to when?
Right.
Compared to the moment before awakening, and because that only the before makes sense a priori without explanation only if there's been one shift and it was a sudden shift that just happened.
Right.
Then you can say before and after. If there's been multiple sudden shifts, or if there's been a graduated kind of seeping and shifting slowly, then the before doesn't make sense without the definition.
Right.
So you're talking about before the first one, before the last one, before them all,
Right.
you know.
Gotcha.
Because the thing about questions is the way they're asked is absolutely critical,
Absolutely.
you know, because, I mean, that's what polling is about. You know, you slightly change the wordage of the question, the numbers just skew.
Absolutely. And that's another thing. I just want to make these as unbiased and almost neutral, so that you're not pushing or pulling for certain.
Well, what we have here is a fabulous starting point, and honestly, I think to get to that, if we want this to be like a professional tool or close, we're going to, I think, need to have groups getting together on Zoom and actually going through sessions where we tack it together.
That's a good idea.
Because otherwise, we're just going to be emailing our opinions around.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And I would be happy to participate in something like that. I mean, of course, we can do pre-work beforehand, or we can section off certain things. But look, we have multiple psychologists in this thing, and that's what psychologists do. We have multiple coaches. All of us are pros at asking questions.
Right.
You know.
Right. Got it. Right.
So maybe we could just have Jeffrey actually send us the interview sheet,
Right.
the real one.
Well, I think his interview sheet is 24 hours long.
Fine.
No, I'm not doing a 24-hour interview.
Well, I mean, I think he probably has it memorized by now, but
I would imagine. Yeah. Right. So, are you satisfied? Are you at an okay?
I'm neither satisfied nor dissatisfied, but I feel good.
Oh, I'm glad.
Well, I have a question for you, or So what did you get out of this, if anything, and what are your feelings?
Well, I'm trying to take my psychologist hat off because it's at odds with a lot of this,
It's at odds with what? I'm sorry.
the non-duality stuff. So, for instance, I might say, as I think I did say, your negative thoughts and your thoughts in general decreased, but positive stuff or other things have not increased enough or changed enough to increase your well-being, maybe.
That's a psychological judgment on your part, then.
I think so, yeah. But
Yeah, because I think the jury is out on whether having tons more positive feelings is better than not.
well, what leads to higher well-being?
I think a problem with all of Jeffrey's things is that well-being has not been defined. It's not defined in the book that I could find, and so we're aiming for better something that hasn't been clearly defined. And I think that until we get that defined, we're not tracking clearly on this whole FC and EC.
Okay.
And I think that's what I'd like to have happen is what is well-being.
Right.
I mean, like in written format. I mean, like nailed down.
Wait a minute. Hello? Who's hi? Turn your recording off.
Yeah, I'm turning it off. Okay. There's a number of things that I've been wanting to post or thinking about, not really wanting to, thinking about posting on the forum, and that's one of them, is that this well-being is this massive component of this whole process, or marker, or whatever you want to call it, but it's not really clear what it is. The term is introduced in his book without a definition.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think there's a glossary saying what it is. So in essence, it could be 90 people going for different versions of whatever they think it is.
Right.
And I guess that ambiguity could have its own purpose, but to me, it's not, especially if this has the color of science around it.
Well, yeah. But David, don't forget, you're a whole lot more precise than most people.
Okay.
I mean, really. I mean, a lot of these, I'm kind of that way myself in terms of word usage and meanings and all of that stuff. And most people really don't think about that stuff much, I think.
Well, all right.
It's bad, it's just different.
No, I mean, I'm not saying that other people should be thinking about it.
Right.
I'm saying it should be defined.
I agree.
Yeah.
So speaking a common language. But the other thing is that the interview process for each person in a way is idiosyncratic. So what is going to unblock a blind spot for one person is not necessarily what's going to do it for another.
Well, some people have said they've just kind of had conversations where stuff comes out, and other people have done dialogues instead of Q&A one way or the other. Yeah, I mean, I'm totally fine with all of that.
Well, I'm concerned that unless the people who are doing these dialogues are either professionals or really have the whole shit committed to memory, that they're not covering a lot of stuff.
Oh, I am sure that they're not. I'm sure that the dialogues might end up being very, very helpful, but they're not really. They're probably not as objectively effective in terms of lists in ferreting out the blind spots because the blind spots are going to come through probing. They're not going to come through just chatting.
Right.
I think.
I agree. And I think the repetition and the fine tuning is going to help all of that.
Yeah. So if you want to do a session, he has it right here. Note to self, define before and after change points. So That's
Right.
what I said. I didn't see that. Good.
I didn't see that either. I don't have that on mine.
This is a,
Oh, yeah, I see it. I see it. Right.
yeah.
Got it. Right. That's
So did you, maybe you said or not, did you say what this has, what if anything this did for you? Maybe you said it, but I don't remember it now.
Well, it's made me think about some things differently.
About the positives not coming in.
Right. And the definitions of things and the assumptions made without more clarification. Because I know that I've assumptions have been made about me during the interview, and I have probably made assumptions about other people. So again, I think that the fail safe is that we're going to do this more than once, 4 or 5 times throughout other people. And I think that that's going to be what will be most helpful, I think.
Certainly.
This has just been a lot of fun for me with you.
Oh, thank you. It's been good. So yeah, I'm going to turn this off now.